Maybe it's my age, but I'm somewhat of a traditionalist. I like eating fish and chips, and I like having roast beef and Yorkshire pudding on a Sunday and having afternoon tea. It's just funny how all these examples relate to eating. Anyway, when it comes to watches, once again, I'm a traditionalist. When I look at a movement, I like to see perlage. I love seeing Cote Genève on bridges. I love a sprinkling of thermally blued screws. Recently I've been wearing the Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 XP TT. It's a bit of a mouthful, so I'm probably going to say it wrong at some point. With this watch there is an absence of perlage, Cote Genève and thermally blued screws. Instead it embraces modernity. It's open work but expressed in a neoteric style. The main plate and bridges are sandblasted, reinforcing the model's contemporary character. In many ways the watch shuns tradition, and yet I love it. So let me tell you more about this fascinating timepiece. Back in 2019, Chopard released the inaugural versions of the Alpine Eagle, a collection of elegant sports watches. The brand offered the watches in different case sizes and materials. Shortly after the Alpine Eagle was launched, I travelled to Switzerland and spent time at Fleurier Ebauches in the canton of Neuchâtel. And I witnessed at close quarters the company making its own in-house movements. I also spent time in Geneva at the company's headquarters, observing the making of cases and bracelets, and the time I spent with Chopard served to reinforce my belief that it makes some of the best watches on the market today. If you wish to read more about the time I spent with Chopard, just go to the comment section and you'll find links to both features. Since 2019, the Swiss market has expanded the Alpine Eagle collection, releasing numerous additional references, a clear sign that the model has proved highly popular. Chronographs, a flying tourbillon, a gorgeous slim model with a Monte Rosa pink dial, a hallmark with the Poisson de Genève, which is incredibly impressive, and of course, this being Chopard, several models adorned with precious stones. The Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 XP TT was unveiled last year at Watches and Wonders 2024. It shares much in common with the 2019 release, but it has some distinctive differences, and so I asked the brand if I could have a sample for hands-on review. I've worn the watch over the past 3 weeks and I wish to point out some of the details which I think make this watch very special indeed. Front of house you'll see two baton style hands. They're rhodium plated and lined with superluminova. These hands converse with rectangular shaped bands, again rhodium plated and lined with superluminova. Interestingly, the indexes are affixed to the chapter ring and then are cantilevered, so projecting over the movement, appearing almost to float. And this detail introduces a lovely depth to the display. It's delightful. In terms of functions, it's very simple. It's hours, minutes, nothing else. And that's a good thing because this watch allows the movement to sync without any annoying distractions. As mentioned earlier, the exposed movement, the L.U.C 9617 S1, features a sandblasted main plate and bridges. The muted sandblasted grey tones of the main plate and bridges act as a foil, allowing other components to shine. Openworked and skeletonized movements are nothing new, indeed they date back to the 18th century. However, where most openwork dials feature numerous irregular shaped apertures positioned adjacent to jewel beds, etc., this one delivers something new. What Chopard has done is very different. The apertures in the bridges are arranged in concentric arcs. They imbue the display with a sense of order. The Chopard reveals many of its 167 movement components for the delectation of horological voyeurs. And looking at the front of the watch, just between 1 and 230, you still see parts of the barrel. Well, actually there are two because they're stacked one above the other. Flip the watch over and you see said barrel. And it's got this lovely sunray brush on it. Between 3 and 4 o'clock you can see the keyless works with the cover plate, the check spring, crane wheel, etc. all on show. At 7 o'clock you can see the shock protection device just above the balance. And to the centre of the watch you can see the air wheel and minute wheel. I could literally just stare at this watch for hours. Well, I have actually. It's fantastic because there's so many details, but unlike some skeleton watches where the hands can become lost in a sea of components, with this watch it's very simple to read. This is because those arcing sections of the main plate and the grey sandblasted finish don't inhibit readability. Flip the watch over and you see even more horological nudity. Again, those lovely grey, silver and ruby hues all juxtaposed, allowing the wearer to see what's going on and understand how the watch works. As you may have noticed, the watch features a micro-rotor in 22 karat gold. Chopard is one of the few maisons who offer this form of self-winding system. The challenge is creating sufficient inertia from a small mass, compared to a full-size rotor, to energise the mainspring. Certainly the density of the 22 karat gold helps. The problem with some micro-rotors is that an inactive wearer may not create sufficient kinetic energy to tension the mainspring, or mainsprings in this case. Now I've worn this watch for 3 weeks, and despite the fact that I'm not known for being the most active individual, the micro-rotors work brilliantly. It's never stopped the watch, it's never needed winding, there's no unnecessary arm flailing required. In fact, you don't need to leave your armchair with this watch, because the micro-rotor is harvesting energy very efficiently indeed. The benefits of using a micro-rotor when contrasted with a full-size oscillating mass is that the micro-rotor sits flush with the neighbouring bridges, rather than sitting above, and this mitigates movement thickness. The movement is just 3.3 millimeters thick, and the watch is just 8.03 millimeters in height, and it's one of the factors that contributes to the incredible layer of comfort. Another obvious benefit of using a micro-rotor compared with a full-size oscillating mass is that you get to see more of the movement and the components, the very thing that you're actually looking for with a skeleton watch. The micro-rotor bears 3 initials on it: L.U.C, L.U.C Chopard, the founder of Chopard, and it's the ultimate expression of Chopard ownership. And in my opinion, the quality of some of the L.U.C products, it stands comparison with the so-called Holy Trinity brands. Look closely at the movement and you'll see straight graining, cerclage on wheels, mirror polished screws. Everything is refined to the nth degree. The balance is visible to the rear, again indulging my inquisitive nature, and I can see the balance wheel oscillating to and fro. I can see the hairspring pulsing with life. I can see the pallet lever nodding up and down as it kisses the silver-toned escape wheel. It's all delicious. That's food again. In terms of the case, it's formed of grade 5 titanium. This is an alloy composed of 90% titanium, 6% aluminium and 4% vanadium, with small traces of iron and oxygen. It's stronger than grade 2, but it's more expensive, both in terms of raw material costs and also the cost of production or producing parts. Grade 5 titanium is light, it's corrosion resistant, it's non-magnetic and it's hypoallergenic, all very useful attributes. When wearing the Alpine Eagle, its lightness, its slender profile, its modest 41mm case diameter, its accomplished design, it all contributes to this lovely costing wrist feel. And because Chopard has used grade 5 titanium, they've been able to polish sections of the case and bracelet, something that's not possible with grade 2 titanium. Just look at how Chopard has juxtaposed highly polished and straight brush surfaces. The crown guard is highly polished. The bezel is brushed but punctuated with gleaming screws. But I also have to return to the bracelet. And when I look at the bracelet, you've got these lovely polished squares that sit in the centre of the bracelet, and they sit proud of the neighbouring brushed sections, and they're actually retained with little screws from behind. It's probably a very expensive way of making a bracelet, but the result is it looks gorgeous and it feels gorgeous against the wrist. And when you manipulate the bracelet between the fingers, you can see that each link wonderfully articulates with its neighbour, flexing around the wrist, granting an ergonomic fit par excellence. There's another trait that I've come to appreciate with this watch, and that is when you place a stainless steel watch and bracelet against the wrist, it can feel cold, especially here in northern England, but titanium has this lovely warm feeling against the skin. So in summary, what do I think of the Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 XP TT? The dial wonderfully plays with different heights, colours and shapes to reel numerous parts in motion while at the same time delivering excellent readability. The movement is contemporary but beautifully executed. The view to the rear is equally gorgeous. The micro-rotor delivers all the functionality of a full-size oscillating mass, but its presence mitigates the overall thickness of the movement and affords unrestricted views of numerous components. And that brings me to the case and bracelet. I've worn this watch for 3 weeks, and despite its many attributes, I continue to marvel at the feel of the watch on my wrist. This is a watch that is so unobtrusive you can sometimes forget you're wearing it. This is one of the most comfortable watches I've ever worn, and the reason why I want to get hands-on with other Alpine Eagle references. Oh, and before you ask, would I recommend the Chopard Alpine Eagle 41 XP TT? You betcha. Until next time, watch geeks, keep collecting.